Welcome in for another edition of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee, the best coffee shop in the land. It's summertime, the days are longer, so you're going to need some more energy to pick your stuff up throughout the day. Make sure you get that energy from PJ's. And also, you're going to want to be riding clean this summer, so make sure it's in a ride from Matt Bauer's Auto Group. They have the pre-owned center on Veterans Memorial Boulevard, so make sure you check them out if you want to be clean this summer. Mike, we got our second OTA availability yesterday. We saw some good things from the offense, and now we can say we saw some good things from the defense also. That first showing wasn't looking too well for the defense. Nick and I had talked about it on Wednesday's show, but let's get into our first topic presented by Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon. Who stood out in the second OTA availability?
Well, it's funny. I had written the script for today's show and suggested let's call it the non-quarterback edition, because every episode seems to be about the quarterbacks. Every discussion is about the quarterbacks. But we got to talk about the quarterbacks, especially if anyone saw the highlights from yesterday's practice. We weren't able to video everything they did on 7-on-7s, but I saw the Saints put that throw out, Tyler Shuck, 60 yards to Bud Means. I mean, that's the highlight of practice. That's one of those plays that, is going to be a Tyler Shuck highlight anytime we talk about him or anybody talks about him on TV or, there's a preview. They're going to be like, oh, how about let's throw that 60-yard touchdown pass that the Saints put out on their highlight reel. It was a great throw, great catch from Bud Means. We'll talk about him in a little bit later segment. He also hit Donovan Peoples-Jones deep down the sideline, showing off that big play. Spencer Rattler had some highlights, hit both Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave in different moments. Look, they didn't, I don't think, raise their standing or lower their standing from what we've been talking about, but they continue to have their moments in practice. I can't wait till the stakes get higher. Hopefully during minicamp, maybe we see 11-on-11. Maybe we see 2-minute drill. Maybe we see, the situations, red zone, things like that. We'll definitely see that in training camp and then the preseason games. But non-quarterback, what stood out to me and continues to stand out to me is these defensive ends. And look, we are going to make too big of a deal out of the switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4. We probably already have. When they're in nickel and dime, you probably won't even be able to tell how it looks different. But when you can tell how it looks different is when you're watching practices with 7-on-7 drills, because it is different to see Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson and Chase Young in 7-on-7 drills. Normally they worked off to the side with the defensive line during those drills. And now there they are out there dropping back in coverage, simulating some pass rush. And look, I talked to Carl Granderson about it yesterday. He said, of course we worked on coverage and we had coverage assignments in the past. And Kellen Moore said, these guys are going to be pass rushers first and foremost. That is the number one priority. We're not taking anything away from that. But it's nice to be multiple and versatile. And there will be times when our ends drop back in coverage so DeMario Davis and Pete Werner can blitz. And I just, frankly, these defensive ends, anything that's different is probably good for them. Each one of them. Cam Jordan talked about hating being stuck on the inside, especially when he thought the scheme was basic under defensive line coach Todd Grantham for the first half of last season. Chase Young has been waiting forever to fully tap into his potential. I talked to Granderson. He said he dropped down from 285 back to 275 this offseason.
Okay.
Because he thought he didn't quite have as much motor last year as he had the last couple of years, which were some of the best seasons of his career. Isaiah Foskey obviously needs anything to shake it up. So doing something new and different, I'm excited to watch these guys develop, because that position group is fascinating. We could call it maybe the biggest weakness or the biggest concern spot on the team. But there's a bunch of guys there that, Chase Young in particular, I mean, could he become the defensive MVP if it ever locks together? Who knows? He is such a pivot point for this team that I like watching those guys be doing anything new and different.
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll talk more about them in a little while, but you just pinning in on that Chase Young point, you paid him and he was able to play the entire season last year. So replicate that again.
The whole offseason is even. Yeah, remember this time last year he was on the shelf.
Yeah. So let's see what he can maximize into. But just you covered pretty much all the base points of the OTA practice, but just honing in on some other things. It seemed like Rattler and Shuck both were just picking at certain people on the defense. And one of those people in particular, Rajon Wright, who was in coverage on some of those bomb plays, made up for it later down the line with an interception. So that was pretty huge for him just to see his recovery after getting beat down on. But also inside of the individual drills, you just get to see Kendra Miller, and you get to see that explosiveness and that speed, and you're like, if all of this can come together,
Mm.
this can be something. But we've been saying that for the last 2 years, but it just seems more encouraging now with the complete blank slate, building up from the ground up, just to see how all of that comes together. And also back with the offensive line, not too much to really say about the configuration. It was the same thing that we've already been seeing, but they used a different kind of method with some resistance bands connected to the wall to, I guess, assist in getting in your drop quicker or something like that to help just hone in on the small things. They had resistance bands around their waist and around their exterior foot. So we'll see what kind of that translates into. I think Nick had asked Kellen Moore about it in the press conference yesterday, and he was just like, "Hey,
Yeah,
they
he
have a."
laughed at how Brendan Nugent's so creative working with those guys. Yeah, and it's probably notable that they didn't change anything. Look, we saw changes with the backup line, and they're going to do shuffling. So anytime
Yeah,
they're not doing shuffling on the offensive line, it's like, all right, even more evidence that this is their lineup. Which is something we were curious about. If it would have been the story of the day, if like all of a sudden Tali Flog is playing left tackle
yeah,
and Trevor Fanning's playing right tackle, but they all stayed in their positions. Yeah, I mean that group could be the strength of the team, as we talked about earlier this week. The development of the young guys on the offensive line is as important as anything this offseason. And yeah, look, that Rajon Wright interception was a great play by Rajon Wright. It was a bad throw by Tyler Shuck. We
mhm.
obviously have to mention the lows too when we're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about those guys. In two OTAs, that's the first interception we saw from either one, and he held onto the ball too long. He was late delivering the throw, so it's not going to be perfect, and we're going to see highs and lows for sure. Another guy who stood out to me was Danny Stutzman. Got a lot of run with the first team. Now, at the beginning, it was DeMarco Jackson next to Pete Werner, or I mean, sorry, Nephi Sewell next to Pete Werner, which is also what we saw last week. Since Demario Davis wasn't in either of the sessions we saw, although he's been
he
here
was
this
in.
week, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But after Nephi Sewell got that first session, it was Stutzman the rest of the practice, including all that 11-on-11 walkthrough he did. He ran down the field, covering Cedric Wilson about 30 yards down the field and helped break up a pass, even though it was a good throw by
Oh yeah,
Shuck and
yeah.
maybe could have been caught. Great throw by Shuck. But Stutzman, I don't think he gets a chance as long as Demario Davis and Pete Werner are healthy. But early on, I mean, the run he's getting early on, and Nick had been telling me, been hearing good things about him from people who have watched all of the OTAs and everything like that. So they might have found one on day 3, and who has a chance to emerge as a number 3 linebacker who rotates into the mix. And obviously, the most important is what his future looks like.
Yeah, for sure. No question about it. Another thing, just talking about, these are rookies. You know what I mean? Some of these players are rookies in their first time being in this kind of environment. Going back to the running backs, there was a drill that they were doing. Joe Thomas, he's back in action down here after a year in New York. And just seeing Devin Neal, it was some drill just coming off the ball. Maybe it wasn't as fluid. I saw in the clip we posted yesterday, I saw some people pointing that out. But in terms of just drill work, he continuously looked pretty well, looked pretty good. Just he's a rookie, you know what I mean? So there's certain things that they have to come up to speed with, a lot of things processing at one time. But just kind of honing in back on Kendre Miller, I think that if this all comes together and he, takes advantage of these opportunities, if that offensive line is clicking, then man, the running back room can be another bright spot on
It
this
has to
team
be,
moving
right?
forward.
Has to
Yeah.
be. Has
Yeah.
to be. And look, we're not going to see Alvin Kamara in these OTAs. We probably won't see him until mandatory minicamp. That's how he's always done things,
Yeah.
and it hasn't held him back. So good for him living his life and showing
Right.
up and never leaving any doubt about what he's been doing behind the scenes. But man, yeah, I mean, if this offensive line lives up to its potential, then Alvin Kamara has a chance to have the best season he's had in years, and certainly those young guys, Kendre, Devin Neal, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's in this mix.
Yeah.
I liked him in that drill that you
Yeah.
posted. So we can't stop talking about him too. A lot of opportunity for all those guys with Jamal Williams not being here anymore.
Yeah. And with that group clicking, the quarterbacks, their job just becomes that much easier. So it can be an entire helping system for each other. But going back to the defensive line, you kind of spoke on it earlier about how several different players are in different spots this year in terms of what their responsibilities will be and what they will be asked to do. So let's kind of go through and just guess at
Oh,
which defensive linemen make the 53-man roster because
it's crazy.
it is piled up in there, man.
Well, and I could have named Jonah Williams. He's another guy that stood out to me yesterday just because of the way they've been using him in the first two OTAs. Now, we haven't seen Nathan Shepard at any OTAs yet. We saw Brzee and Godshaw last time, or we haven't seen Godshaw yet.
I don't think we've seen Gacho
All
yet.
right. Um, so we haven't seen how the rotation will look if every defensive tackle is there at the same time. I mean, I think base downs should start with Godshaw and Shepard or Godshaw and Brzee. So you can only read so much into it. But Jonah Williams was in there with the first unit next to Vernon Broughton, and then Colin Saunders rotated in with them after that. But I mean, there are just so many guys. I count 14 defensive tackles and defensive ends that you would normally predict to make the roster based on like their investment level or so I'll go through them here. So they add Godshaw. You think he's a lock to make the roster.
Definitely.
They kept Nathan Shepard, Colin Saunders, and Cam Jordan. They re-signed Chase Young. They have Brian Brzee. He's a lock. They have Carl Granderson. He's a lock. They add Chris Rumpf. They add Jonah Williams. They add Vernon Broughton. They draft Fadil Diggs. They still had John Ridgway and Christian Boyd and Isaiah Foskey. That's 14 guys.
Right.
Normally, the rule of thumb when I do my 53-man roster projections, and I'm always willing to tweak it here and there for a guy, but it's 10 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers, 10 DBs, and you have to like that's 25 guys on defense, and
Yeah.
and if you decide I got to keep 6 linebackers, you got to pluck away from somewhere else. If you decide I got to keep 11 defensive linemen, you got to pluck away from somewhere else. But I count 14 guys going for 10, 11 spots. I mean, look, there's no way you can keep Devon Godshaw at nose tackle, Colin Saunders at nose tackle, and I would say Christian Boyd and John Ridgway are probably both nose tackles. You're not keeping 4 nose tackles. And then
Not happening.
interior linemen, Nathan Shepard, Brian Brzee, Jonah Williams. I feel pretty good about all 3 of them. So now we're up to 7. Are the other 7 all edge rushers? Cam, Foskey, Granderson,
And Young.
and Chase Young as the top 4, and then Fadil Diggs, Chris Rumpf. Vernon Broughton, another interior line. I mean, I don't see how they can keep all those interior linemen. I think it could be tough for Colin Saunders. I think it could be tough for John Ridgway. I think it could be tough for Christian Boyd. I think Fadil Diggs is going to have a hard time as a 7th rounder if they like Chris. They brought in Chris Rumpf, who was drafted high and played under Staley, so they personally like him. Jonah Williams, they brought him in because he fits this style. Vernon Broughton looks like a stud right away. I don't know, man. There's going to be weird cuts. I don't think Foskey's in trouble because his contract is still guaranteed this year. You want to try to develop a third-year guy like that, but I think at least 3 or 4 of the names that we just said can't make this team.
Yeah, no, for sure. Skill-wise, Foskey can't make it, but contract-wise,
yeah,
he kind of has to, you know what I mean, at that point. But I think, and you hate to see it because these are the guys who are here and who are, have made contributions over the last couple of seasons, but like Ridgway, like Boyd, you hate to see it, but the fat has to be trimmed somewhere. Like you said, Chris Rumpf, they bought him in because his familiarity with the Staley defense.
Yeah.
Of course, Vernon Broughton, you just drafted him, so he's not going anywhere. Yeah. So it gets very thin. So if you just had to eliminate 4, who
well, I guess I'd say Ridgway,
Okay.
Boyd, and I won't eliminate them. They have all of training camp to prove their point. But the guys that I think that are like below my line and have to work their way up to get their head above the line is probably Ridgway and Boyd.
Okay.
Who I would consider the 3rd and 4th defensive nose tackles, and if one of them shines, I think it's Colin Saunders whose neck they're breathing down and trying to knock out of there, and then it's going to be tough for Fadil Diggs, I think, as a 7th round pick, but maybe you can get him back on the practice squad. And if I had to get rid of a 4th. Where are we? We've got Foskey 4th, Rumpf 5th, and Diggs 6th at edge rusher. So I just got rid of Diggs.
And what do you think
Is
about
it
Jonah
Rump
Williams?
versus Foskey for one spot, maybe?
Maybe,
Is
maybe.
it is it, um
Did you
gee,
mention Jonah Williams in that?
yeah, I feel like I wanna put Jonah Williams on the team, but yeah, I mean, not if you're keeping Nathan Shepard and Vernon Broughton and Brian Brzee and
Right.
Devon Godshaw and Colin Saunders. Man, this is
Yeah.
I guess it's a good problem to have, and the problem is they also don't have any A1 studs, there's no Chris Jones, Aaron Donald,
Exactly.
Myles Garrett, but yeah, I mean, that's gonna be a fascinating position,
Yeah,
especially because we're still gonna be learning all their roles as we go too.
right. There is exactly that, and that's the thing. You got to see who thrives in this type of environment because we've seen what they, for the most part, what a lot of these players look like in those other systems. But now you have to see what they look like in this 3-4. Who has that speed that was untapped before? Who has that power that was untapped before? And with a player like Foskey, who's on the roster, who has to be kind of contractually kept.
Kind of. I mean, it's not like you can afford to cut him. I mean, it's the
Right.
same thing with Saunders or Shepard or whatever. Like you paid him, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to cut them. But yeah, they got to earn their spots. No,
Yeah.
nobody's in like with Foskey. You don't save money by cutting him, but he's got to be one of your top 10, 11 guys, or you got to still see that
Right.
developmental potential with him. You definitely do. Like I said, that fourth one you told me to pick four. My fourth one
Yeah.
is I got one spot for Foskey or Rumpf. Foskey has to prove he's better than Rumpf.
Has to happen. It has to happen. But let's
What about
close
you?
out. I'm
4?
definitely, yeah,
Same
yeah,
4?
for sure. Yeah, because
Boyd,
Boyd,
Ridgeway, Diggs?
Ridgeway, yeah, and then Foskey and Rump, they gotta
Yeah.
go
Yeah,
in the
that makes
corner and
sense.
scrap with each other and find out
Yeah.
who's gonna win out of that. But let's just continue to wrap up the second week of OTA coverage. Next segment presented by Hard High Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. Mentioned some of these names a little bit earlier in the show, but whose skill players has the best chance to break through and shine through.
Well, yeah, so we talked about Bub Means
Hmm.
having that highlight play, and he's all over the highlights, partly because of his personality. Talked about Kendre Miller. Um, Man, every time we see him out there, this guy should be a stud.
Should be, yeah,
Dallin Holker, we're not seeing out there, but we just know the opportunity exists there at tight end for a young guy, and he's a guy who should have a year two breakthrough. Hopefully, we'll see him out there participating. He's been watching from the side, so hopefully, we see him by the end of mini camp. And then who else did I put in this group?
and Mason Tipton.
Mason Tipton. Look, that was another one Nick had been hearing some pretty good things about. He's still out there making plays. Obviously, we never saw it actually translate into games with him. So um, I guess I'm going to go Bub out of this group.
Yeah,
Kellen Moore listed him yesterday. I thought it was interesting when people were talking about different sizes and shapes of receivers, and he listed him and Cedric Wilson as two guys who are a little bigger. But he's on Kellen Moore's radar. He's been at all these workouts. It was injury that slowed him down when he started to show some promise last year. He's their highest draft pick of the last 2 years, even though it was a previous regime at that position, since they didn't go out and get one high this year. So I think opportunity, talent,
yeah.
his connection with these young quarterbacks. If I had to bet on one of these guys, actually, I'm not going to make a strong bet on it. I think we're still talking about a fourth or fifth receiver in the pecking order, but I think I'd put him on my 53-man roster, and I think there's going to be opportunities there. So, and I think we haven't seen everything he can do yet, because when we saw him come in and really get featured with Spencer Rattler in that one game, it was like a week later that he hurt his ankle and had to go on
Right,
the
and that
shelf
hadn't
this
gotten
year.
right since. Yeah.
So we haven't closed the book on him yet. At least there's more for us to learn about him.
Yeah, no, for sure. Spoke with him yesterday, a guy who isn't shy about telling you
Yeah,
how he feels and saying what's in his mind. E- Even when we talked to him during the Super Bowl week, he just was so ecstatic about the new happenings, the new going. And that was before Shuck was drafted and before Kellen Moore was officially hired. So yesterday we talked to him and he was saying how he has such a connection with Tyler Shuck right now. On top of the connection he already had with Spencer
yeah,
Rattler, because you just look at his Instagram and he's always at some field catching the ball
yeah.
somewhere. So
You
he's
like to see
constantly
that.
working and constantly growing. He even talked about how he talked to Brandon Cooks, who's now the vet of that wide receiver room, and how he told them how to continue to preserve his body while still working. So I definitely think out of all of them, if I had to put any type of bet towards it, I kind of think I'll be a little bit stronger than you on it,
Yeah.
on saying that he is going to be a main contributor this season.
I'm glad I went first then because I thought maybe you'd go Kendra. What do we think? I mean, we got to talk about Kendra. He looked great in that video. Look, it's great to see him out here healthy.
Right.
He's been here for the entire offseason program, got his new number, got his new offense, got some studs in front of him on the offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what 80% health with him, and then the other 20% is development because there were some missed assignments and things that when he had a chance to get on the field last year, he was back off the field. So it's got to be a big offseason. But the best way to learn goes back to health. It's by participating in every
Being
single
available.
practice and
Yeah.
being able to do this. So off to a great start. Still passes that eyeball test every time out there. If you brought in a stranger and you said, let's have a draft based just on this one OTA session that you're watching and you don't
Yeah.
know anything else about these guys, they'd all take Kendre Miller. Is this it? Is this what he needed? He needs health and he needs a new coaching staff and he needs a new number. And if anyone needs all that new stuff, it's him.
Exactly. And if you need more new stuff, then you might need another scene because no
Yeah.
no other changes can be made to this point, man.
Yeah.
So many things have been changed since he came in, and yeah, injuries you can't control them for the most part. So you just got to roll with the punches. But now he's in that territory where he has to maximize this next opportunity into the opportunity to show out. Not just in injuries, but in the classroom too. Continue to work on, going out there and executing the play like it's supposed to be executed. So I think if there's anyone who can maximize it, along with Bub, it is Kendrick, just because that eye test is
Yeah.
it just pops out so much. And you
And I
hate to
will
see all of that not be just put together at the same time and materialize into
and
something
I will
real.
say this, if I'm in one of those 300 player dynasty fantasy football leagues where you're like picking up every player you've ever heard of
Yeah.
because you just want lottery tickets. I'd take Kendra Miller over Bub Means for that reason because I think if Bub Means hits, you're talking about a guy who becomes a fourth receiver and plays some valuable minutes and gets a couple touchdowns here and there and becomes
Mhm.
a part of the rotation. If Kendra Miller hits, he could be the future RB1 for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, that's really what we're talking about with him. It's so boom or bust with him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then Mason Tipton, another guy who's changed his number. So maybe that leads into something, but
He
that
does
body,
look so good on the practice field always. I mean, last summer he was the guy.
right,
He was
right,
he was the breakout guy last summer.
right. But I know they've been,
Yeah.
whatever about it, but that body type is the same that's
Yeah,
already
that's the
there
problem.
and
Opportunity
maximized
is not
across the
there.
board. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how he develops. But question with Holker, when he comes in, I mean, what can that maximize potential even look like?
Yeah, it's tough with Holker. I mean, he's probably a pass catching only tight end. I mean, I'm sure he's added some bulk and he's going to learn how to block and he's going to take that year two leap. The biggest case for Holker is opportunity, but I don't know for sure what that opportunity is going to look like. We're seeing Foster Moreau out there every day.
Mhm.
He's not participating yet. It's going to be a while till he can fully participate. Probably not till training camp. But he looks like he's going to hit the ground running because he's doing individual practice
Yeah.
drills. He's learning this offense. He's out there every day. So I feel pretty good about him. And then Taysom Hill, yet to see. If he's definitely going to be a part of this team, if he's hitting the ground running himself at the beginning of training camp. But then Jack Stoll is this veteran that they brought in maybe to be sort of a hybrid tight end fullback. There's no other fullbacks on the roster, so maybe that won't be a huge part of this offense. But the staff specifically worked with him before and identified him and wanted him, and we're seeing a ton of
Yeah.
him out there in practice. So Holker doesn't have a clean path. He's going to have to earn it by wowing us. Hopefully, we'll see him by mini camp time, training camp time. But I think his best case is he tight end too when everybody else was hurt. But it doesn't. I think by the time mini camp's rolling around, he won't be tight end too unless he really breaks through.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, you have to take these opportunities and maximize them whenever you get them. And now that other people are coming in and other people are getting healthy, it's time to kind of try to get on that timeline to be in that number, because if you're not, then it gets kind of rough. But we're gonna hit a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have more show. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store.
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, your local insurance experts. Hardhide flavored whiskey, Ponchatoula strawberry, and Chilton County peaches in your favorite bars, stores, and restaurants. Hardhide Chilton County peach whiskey is a blend of aged wheat whiskey, light American whiskey, and fresh Chilton County peaches from Alabama's Durbin Family Farms. And Hardhide strawberry whiskey tells the story of a small town famous for strawberry farming. A delicious natural strawberry-infused 86 proof whiskey for whiskey lovers. Just look for the red and orange bottles in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants.
Welcome back for more NewOrleans.Football. It is now time for our next segment presented by Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. Mike, we already knew this, but it just got reassured that these guys off the field are still hyper competitive. They had a team bonding event the other day where they went paintballing against each other. And I don't know, man. I don't know how the scoring system worked. I don't know how the tournament system worked, but it sounded like they had about 15 winners on like 3 different teams. So who knows who's the real there, but let's just go through the roster and draft who we would want on our paintball team if we wanted to come out on top as champions.
It's draft week. It's draft week. You and Nick had the flag football, Olympic flag football draft the other day.
Yeah.
Poor performance by you, by the way. Hopefully you did more research today.
My
Nick got in your head. You'd be like drafting Quincy Riley in the first round. You panicked. Man, it was rough. But look, Nick made the point afterward. He had 2 guys he didn't want to draft in that end that he thought everyone would take right away. And I agreed with him on Taysom Hill because Taysom Hill's game is not flag football. Taysom Hill likes to run into you, run over you. He invites contact. He doesn't look for the open field. But Nick also said he wouldn't take Alvin Kamara. He made the good point about him having such great contact balance. Kamara was the first guy I thought of, though, but obviously vintage Kamara, when he used to talk about how he sees the field like a matrix. I mean, his balance is the best thing I've ever seen. I feel like if Kamara went down the career path of becoming an Olympic flag football player, he might have been one of the best ever. The only other Saints player in history that I would have taken maybe is Darren Sproles ahead of that because, it's going to be hard to grab those flags in addition to the way he moves around the field. But I think vintage Kamara would be a fantastic flag football player. But the paintball draft is interesting because you got 2 things going for you. Like, I don't know if they're just playing hide out and don't get hit or if there's like a capture the flag element to this where you have to get somewhere because some of those same guys who can move are obviously going to be valuable. But my first thought was probably a hunting background, probably the patience to sit back, hide in your bunker, and let the impatient players come out and expose themselves that try to rush at you. You stay there. You say, you got to come to me. My first guess was Landon Young, and I did go up to Landon Young and ask him, and he did not say that he was the number 1 player, but he felt pretty good about his performance. He said he only got hit twice, once in the gun, which he didn't think should count, once on his hand. So obviously Landon Young was playing the kind of game that I thought, perch somewhere, you have to come get me. I think the guys who would be really bad at this game would be the impatient ones. When
Yeah.
I've played paintball, I get impatient. I'm like, I don't want to just sit here.
Right.
And then as soon as you're like, I'm going to go run and try to get better position, you're plucked. So
Right.
you got to be patient. So there's if there's a capture the flag element, though, we do need some of those shifty guys. So who's your first pick?
Oh, my first pick will be somebody who I know has that experience in those outdoor settings, and smaller guy, but it's to his advantage in this kind of scenario. Blake Groupie. I'm going with Blake Groupie, a guy.
You got insider information. We heard that Blake
What?
Groupie killed it.
Hey, man. Hey, don't be mad at me because I did a scouting report. You
Yeah,
said how you
you're
did
right.
yours.
Credit
So,
to him.
yeah.
We heard he was good. I think he was on the winning team. The one person you said everybody claimed they were on the winning team. Nick Saldivari told me he was on the winning team. He's another guy I thought might be pretty good. It sounds like he helped the team, but I don't know that he was the standout player. But I saw in the photos that Groupie was on that winning team. It looked like Alante Taylor was on that winning team, who I would think would also be good at this.
Yeah.
Cesar Ruiz, Kelvin Banks, Foskey. I'm trying to remember who else was in that picture, but yeah, Groupie. I want to know if you would have picked Groupie if you didn't have the inside info, but it sounds like that was a great pick.
I knew he knew how to hunt. So, yeah, I kind of would have still rocked with him. I mean, yesterday, I'll let you go next, but Kellen had mentioned the name also that.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
We'll go
yes,
snake draft.
Kellen had mentioned Pete Werner. So
Yeah.
right there, that's two heavy hitters. That's two
And
heavy
I
hitters
didn't
off
think
the
of Pete
board.
Werner at first, but I see it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I definitely see it.
Kellen also mentioned Colin Saunders, but I think it was just because Colin Saunders got himself noticed. Like Kellen didn't have like the information right in front of him, like the stats.
Yeah.
And so he mentioned a couple guys that popped in his head. He said Colin Saunders, but he goes, Colin Saunders got out there early a bunch of times. I have a feeling that Colin Saunders was probably the most like he's probably one of those guys who wasn't patient enough to sit back. So maybe a couple of times he went and he ambushed somebody, but he probably got himself in trouble a lot too. I could see that with Colin Saunders. He wasn't sitting around letting the game come to him.
No, he was attacking it.
Well, the other
first.
thing I'm going to do is draft a quarterback.
Okay. So
And,
who you take?
and look, I mean, that's the accuracy. That's seeing the whole field. That's the strategy. That's very important to this game. I actually think this could be a specialty for Tyler Shuck, but the one I would take, and I did not see him in the photos. I think the oblique injury, unfortunately, probably sidelined him. But Jake Hayner. I think Jake Hayner. If there's Olympic paintball one day, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's Jake Hayner's second career path after football.
Yeah, no, I had him in the tuck, man, because I knew he was a hunter also. But you good, you got it. That's all you. A player who I think, just from seeing the pictures once again, Chris Olave.
Yep.
Did you see his trigger discipline? He wasn't ready to fire, and he had his finger up there, so he looked like he had some type of experience out there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going with Chris Olave.
Yeah, I would have taken Olave.
Agility.
I also need my look for anybody watching this show that remembers Nintendo Ice Hockey. I'm an older guy. What you had to do is you had 3 players to choose from. You built your team, and you had the big giant guy who would steal the puck from anyone if they ever ran, but they were slow. And then you had the medium guy, and then you had the little guy who could just move super duper fast all around the puck. And you had to decide, so you got to build out your team. And I've got my sharpshooters. But yeah, if there's some element to somebody who has to move, I also need. I would have taken Olave, but I'll take Rashid Shaheed as my backup plan. Okay. So I'm fine with that. I'll take Rashid Shaheed over Alvin. Brandon Cooks could be good at it too, though.
He could be.
Ooh,
he could be because he has some of the same advantages.
Brandon Cooks is savvy. Brandon Cooks is savvy. All right, I'm gonna go. My team is Landon Young, Jake Hayner, and Brandon Cooks.
I'm gonna go Groupie, Pete Werner, Chris Olave.
All right, let's go play.
Let's go. I think I got you, man. I'm not gonna lie. I think I got you.
Well, yeah. Insider information.
Well, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. But what is this Nintendo Ice Hockey, man? What year are we talking about?
Oh gosh, we're not even talking Super Nintendo. We're definitely talking 1990-ish, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe late 80s. But my strategy was I picked one super fast guy. I mean, the guy was so small that if he bumped into anything, he lost the puck. But he could move fast. Yeah. And then I had 3 of the big burly guys. So what I would do is I'd use my big burly guys to steal or to shoot and score because they could shoot with power.
Yeah.
But then I would pass to the little fast guy and I would get the puck back over to my side. So it was 3 big heavy guys and 1 little skinny guy. The medium guys did no good. I had no use for the medium.
Yeah, no use from you. Just went for the extremes on both ends.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're gonna hit another break, and then when we come back, we'll have more show. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
I got hurt in a car wreck. Why should I get Gordon?
Because when you're hurt, you need money. And I fight for the people of Southeast Louisiana every day. I got a client who injured their neck in a car wreck, $250,000. Another client was hit by a big truck and needed back surgery. I got them $700,000, and they deserved every single penny.
That's what I'm talking about. Why wouldn't I get Gordon?
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, just call me New Orleans. Get it done.
Call 504-800-8888.
Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon Restaurant dropped some new apps, and they nailed every single one. The Southwest Chicken Egg Rolls, crispy, packed with flavor, and the avocado ranch seals the deal. Crab claws in a creamy Cajun sauce? Don't forget the French bread. And the fried chicken cracklings? Crunchy, sweet heat. You'll want your own plate. Open 7 days a week, and yep, they deliver late. Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon Restaurant. Delicious food, superior service. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com.
Welcome to the Queen Casino, where entertainment meets unparalleled customer service. From our days on the water to our new land experience overlooking the Mississippi River, our dedicated staff is here to ensure your visit is nothing short of exceptional. Whether you are coming or going, our well-lit parking lot and security team provide guests with red carpet treatment. Our security team keeps watch so you can focus on fun and fortune. From table to table, our attentive staff is here to serve up the ultimate experience. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back to NewOrleans.Football. It is now time for the Get Gordon question of the day, presented by Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. Today's question is, do you think had the Saints changed this coaching staff a year earlier, would Brandon Staley have recognized Zack Baun's talent and retained/utilized him like they did with him in Philly in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 parts to this question. The first one I want to say is no to the idea that, like, if they had switched to a 3-4, that would have automatically meant, Zack Baun would have succeeded, because the Saints' vision for Zack Baun was the same vision as the Eagles for Zack Baun, which is not to use him as an edge rusher, but to use him as a off-the-ball linebacker. I mean, when they drafted him, even though he had 15 sacks at Wisconsin, they eventually saw him playing maybe Mike linebacker for them, and his path was just blocked by Demario Davis and Pete Werner. So I don't think it was a 3-4 would have changed his career. But sure, any different coach, any different set of eyes, anything to be like, actually, I think this guy's an untapped talent, or maybe they'd have used him different, or maybe they'd have coached him different. So I mean, you have to say yes to that. I mean, the first time another coaching staff got their hands on Zack Baun, they turned him into one of the best players in the league. So yes, on that end, but I don't want to be just like, oh, if they had only switched to a 3-4, then like he would have been in a 3-4 edge rusher or something. He still would have been an off-ball linebacker. He still would have had to beat out Demario Davis or Pete Werner.
Yeah, no, and then you think about the mental aspect of it also. Zach will talk about how there was times where his confidence was completely crushed when he was down here, and that change of scenery and that change just completely helped him kind of rebuild himself and rejuvenate himself into someone that, I mean, now he plays in the Super Bowl and got another contract and all of that. And even you just think about the Saints as a whole, because it's going to happen. It has to happen. Just as the nature of the game. There's going to be another player. And the first person, I don't know why that sticks out of my mind. Maybe because we were talking about him earlier. Kendra Miller, you let him walk and go to Arizona or something like that, and he maximizes the talent that got him drafted by the Saints. And then you're just sitting there again like, come on, man, again? But sometimes that's necessary for people to, move on and evolve into something else. But definitely, I do feel like Zack Baun, I don't think it was going to be the same if he was still down here. I don't think that same level of just explosion that he had last season would have occurred if he was still down here. Just also the doubt the doubt might have also been fuel that led into that explosion. So we'll have to see.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to hope that that kind of change of scenery can happen in the same place if it is a new system, new coaching, new approach, new blank slate, new you're being evaluated from this
Right.
day forward, not from the past. And it's funny, you said Kenry Miller is the first guy you were thinking of. I was thinking of Isaiah Foskey the whole time we were talking about it. And then another one, I think we mentioned this on the show earlier this week, someone on Twitter made the point of watch Trevor Petting.
Yeah.
He's so good at guard now that he prices himself out of New Orleans in free agency after this season. So, yeah, look, hopefully any one of those three guys can find whatever it is they need from a new and different approach and staff and all of that.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for this edition of New Orleans Football. We appreciate you all for stopping in today. Catch you next time.